Good afternoon and welcome to the I-94 and I-35E St. Paul Virtual Open House. We'd like to thank you for taking the time from your busy schedules to join us for a look at upcoming construction beginning this summer on Interstate 94 and Interstate 35 in St. Paul. Let's take a quick look at our agenda. Welcome and introductions will start us out, and then we're going to have a project overview of the I-94 and 35E St. Paul project. I'll be discussing communications before and after construction. Then we'll go to a short question and answer period. Following that, we'll be discussing civil rights and advancing equity, and then a follow-up question and answer period after that. Before we get started, I'd like to run through a few tips for using Zoom. If you're having problems hearing us, you can connect on your phone by calling the number you received with your invitation rather than using your computer sound. You'll need to enter the webinar ID, the participant ID, and the passcode when it prompted. Once you're connected by phone, you will need to mute your computer sound. You can also use the Q&A feature to ask questions about the project or to get help with any technical difficulties during our presentation. We will use the chat feature to share any messages or important links with you. The chat feature will not be available to you during the presentation. I'm Kent Barnard with MnDOT Metro District's Office of Communication and Engagement. I will be handling the day-to-day communication throughout the project, and I would also like to introduce Kim Zleeman, who is the MnDOT project manager for this work. We also have several other MnDOT staff participating today who will assist us with questions at the end of our presentation. And with no further ado, I'll turn the program over to Kim.
All right, thank you very much, Kent. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Kim Zleeman, and I'm a project manager with the Minnesota Department of Transportation Metro District. I'm going to start by giving an overview of what road work MnDOT has planned and where. MnDOT will be doing pavement repairs on parts of Interstates 94 and 35E in downtown St. Paul in 2021 and 2022. The construction areas are shown on the map in yellow here between Western Avenue and Mounds Boulevard on I-94, so that's about a 2-mile stretch of 94, and on 35E from 94 up to University Avenue. The scope of the work includes concrete pavement repairs, drainage improvements, and bridge preservation. The scope doesn't include any change to the alignment or elevation of the interstates or changes to any of the lane configuration or usage. Can you move to the next slide, please? So why is MnDOT doing pavement repair work? The project is a necessary investment in the infrastructure to restore the pavement condition on the interstates and to repair some of the existing bridge structures to extend their serviceable lives. The concrete pavement that's here on 94 and 35E is from the early 1990s. MnDOT did some minor pavement repairs back in 2006. However, the condition of both highways has continued to worsen, requiring increasing amounts of maintenance and patching, and has really reached the point where more extensive repairs are needed. MnDOT assesses pavement based on various factors, including the ride quality or the smoothness, which is what you feel when you're driving on it. The average daily traffic volumes on these segments of both interstates are quite high. Prior to COVID, the average annual daily traffic was over 200,000 vehicles per day in the Commons area, which is where 94 and 35E align with each other between St. Peter and Jackson. The higher traffic volumes here just really worsen that pavement deterioration. The photos here show how the ride quality is beginning to suffer from some joint failures and pop-outs of concrete that have been patched in over time. Can you move to the next slide, please? So when we do pavement work, we also evaluate the condition and the effectiveness of existing drainage infrastructure like pipes and storm structures, replacing or doing minor repairs as needed. In addition, there are a few areas along 94 and 35E that, because of the high water table, experience seepage of groundwater that is problematic and sometimes significant enough to cause ponding of water on the shoulders and those outside lanes, creating icy conditions in the winter. In those areas, we'll be installing a drainage system to capture that water before it seeps onto the roadway. Next slide, please. In addition to pavement work, the project includes preservation work on some of the bridges in the area that are shown in red on this map. MnDOT bridges undergo regular inspections. Work on the bridges within the scope of this project includes repairs to improve the pavement surface, seal cracks that have formed in the bridge deck, perform spot patching and painting as needed, and to replace some joints where the bridge meets the adjacent roadway pavement. Regular bridge preservation work like this helps extend the service life of the existing structures, and when we do more minor work like this now, it helps to avoid more costly work in the future. This project includes preservation work on the 94 westbound and 35E southbound ramps from 12th Street, the Robert Street Bridge over the 94 35E Commons area, the 94 westbound ramp from Mounds Boulevard, and the 94 eastbound ramp to Mounds Boulevard. You can move to the next slide. So now I'll talk about how construction will be staged. Throughout construction, at least 2 lanes of traffic in each direction of I-94 will always be maintained during peak hours, which is during the morning and afternoon heavier commute times, with 3 lanes in each direction maintained in the Commons area of 94 and 35E, which is that, again, that segment where the 2 interstates align with or interline with one another. When the construction's happening on the outside lanes of eastbound and westbound 94, for example, traffic will be shifted to the inside lanes, and then the staging will be switched to shift traffic to the outside lanes and for work on the inside lanes. That shifting of traffic to inside and outside lanes is going to result in some on and off ramp closures for up to a few weeks at a time. Each ramp closure will have an associated detour route that will be posted. There will also be, for this project, some limited weekend full directional closures to address some areas that need more extensive pavement repair work than we can accomplish while maintaining 2 lanes of through traffic. Those full directional closures will be limited to weekends or nights only. On the map here in red is shown the stage 1 construction. So construction will progress from west to east. That stage 1 piece is from Western to the Marion exits. That will start this summer of 2021 and go through the end of the 2021 construction season. Next slide, please. And starting early next year, spring of 2022, we'll start on stage 2, which is the segment between Marion and 35E, including some portions of 35E, and that'll go from spring to midsummer. And then next slide shows the 3rd and final stage of construction, which is between 35E and the Mounds Boulevard area. That will be happening midsummer through fall of 2022, and that'll wrap up the construction on the interstates. Next slide, please. In addition to the pavement and bridge work on the interstate that I just went through, MnDOT will be upgrading existing curb ramps and sidewalks on the frontage and local roads in the project area so that they meet current Americans with Disabilities Act or ADA standards. Consistent with our Minnesota's Olmsted Plan, when we do roadway work on a state highway, we often include the adjacent pedestrian facilities that are within the state right-of-way in the construction contracts to ensure that they're upgraded to meet current ADA standards. The intersections and areas where we're doing these ADA improvements are shown by the red dots. There will also be some segments of sidewalk in between where the walks are in poor condition. All of this work is replacing existing pedestrian facilities that are already there. A list of specific locations of the sidewalk and curb ramp work will be provided on the project website, which Kent will go through a little bit later. And I would just want to say that anytime the sidewalks or curb ramps are closed for construction, there'll be signage to indicate a nearby alternative accessible route that people can take. We can move to the next slide. The construction proposal is currently advertised. We'll be opening contractor bids early May next week and expect to award a construction contract this July. To reiterate the construction schedule that I went through on the previous slides, construction will progress from west to east on 94. Stage 1 will be between Western and Mounds Boulevard. That'll be under construction this summer to the fall of this year. Then stage 2 will pick up in the spring of 2022. That's the piece between Marion and 35E. And then the third and final stage is 35E to Mounds Boulevard. That'll be happening summer to fall of 2022. The sidewalk and curb ramp work on frontage roads, which includes a little bit of mill and overlay work as well that I had forgotten to mention on some segments of St. Anthony and Concordia frontage roads, that will all be happening in the spring to fall of 2022, so that 2022 construction season. Next slide. I had previously mentioned that construction staging will cut lane capacity in some cases about in half, but will maintain at least 2 lanes of traffic on 94 throughout construction during the peak hours. We've completed some advanced traffic modeling to anticipate as best we can the level of traffic delays and determine where we might experience traffic congestion. We've been working with project partners, including the City of St. Paul and Ramsey County, on ways to best mitigate potential traffic impacts. The City of St. Paul operates the traffic signals on the adjacent frontage roads and other local roadways, and we're working with city staff to optimize traffic signal timing at intersections where we anticipate there could be delays or queues of vehicles that are waiting at the signals. The thought is by optimizing the signal timing, we can sometimes give a little bit longer green time to certain vehicle movements to try to minimize those delays and queues as much as possible. And we'll also be monitoring traffic signals on local roads during construction to adjust signal timing as needed. MnDOT has been coordinating with local transit providers, including Metro Transit, to keep them informed of traffic staging so they can plan for impacts to their operations. We'll be coordinating with Metro Transit street operations if construction requires, for example, a temporary bus stop, lane, or street closures. And we have also met with emergency services providers like sheriff, police, ambulance, fire, and we'll continue to communicate the construction staging information and detour information with emergency services so they can plan for those impacts to their operations. And throughout construction, we'll continue to monitor traffic conditions. I mentioned the pre-COVID traffic volumes in the Commons area were around 200,000 vehicles per day. At this point, it's just really very difficult to predict how traffic volumes and patterns might change once more people are back at work. However, because these interstates are so heavily traveled, both for local and regional traffic, when we reduce the lane capacity, we can expect there will be delays on parts of 94 and 35E and Highway 52, as well as on some local roadways where vehicles might divert to avoid delays. The project is coordinating with MnDOT's Regional Transportation Management Center, which is responsible for the overhead message signs, to use those and to deploy additional signage to try to alert drivers of delays and queues ahead. So that concludes the main elements of the project scope and schedule. There'll be an opportunity, as Kent mentioned, for questions, but with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Kent to cover public information and communications.
Thank you, Kim. We realized the impact on traffic early in the planning and design process for this project. Communication was involved at the start of that planning, and we developed a communication and outreach plan last year. We also identified the affected audiences in the project area, statewide and beyond our borders, early in the project. Communication with the public is a top priority for MnDOT in this project and other transportation projects. However, the COVID-19 pandemic presented us with some challenges. We are connecting with communities along the I-94 and 35E St. Paul construction area and beyond through traditional and non-traditional methods while maintaining required social distancing practices. We've held virtual and online and conference call meetings, along with our traditional email updates, telephone calls, and regular mailings. and we have done quite a few mailings to the audiences that we've identified. These approaches are being used to protect the health and well-being of all Minnesotans and to prevent the future and further spread of COVID-19. We identified our regular audiences in addition to those usual audiences of residents, businesses, and commuters, EMS, police, fire, and hospitals. We also focused on the freight and trucking industry, schools throughout the state of Minnesota, hospitality, events and venues, building managers, and of course, Chamber of Commerce and other groups. We reached out to these audiences and many audiences beyond the immediate area to alert them to the project. The communication and engagement plan, as I stated, was developed last year to guide those outreach activities. We also reached out early to identify our audience and identify community partners. Our project website and fact sheet were both created last summer. They are active, and as I like to say, they're a work in progress, and they will be kept up to date throughout the construction process. We also began reaching out to our audiences this fall and in mailings, and this spring we focused on the most impacted public for our stage 1 area outreach that Kim identified earlier. We targeted that outreach to the most impacted stakeholders for 2021, and our other areas, other stages of that project will follow. Very important for us, we identified diverse communities as part of our environmental justice efforts to help with our outreach to diverse, underrepresented groups. Those could include low income, people of color, economic disparity, and particularly those people living in areas near the construction area. It is vital that we engage with communities that are typically, as I call, over and under, overlooked, underserved, and underrepresented. We're also targeting our messages and adjusting our outreach to make sure their voices are heard throughout the process. As part of that effort, we are coordinating with community partners, those smaller organizations and groups that can assist us in outreach to those audiences to help us get the word out. For example, we've had extensive contact with neighborhood councils and business associations, nonprofit organizations, social service agencies such as food shelf or workforce centers, homeless shelters, and of course other advocacy groups. We've also done direct outreach to targeted groups of businesses, major institutions, theaters and entertainment venues, hospitals and medical clinics, places of worship, and the freight providers, and as I mentioned, schools. I'd like to specifically focus on billboards for just a minute. This is not something we typically do, although we have in past projects. However, with the huge traffic impact and the expected congestion and delays and the impact on the neighborhoods, we decided to use several billboards around the project area. The Be Road Ready billboard campaign will be launched in late April, and I've been informed that we have some billboards already in place. Those billboards will be installed throughout this point to late June in advance of our July start of construction. We'd like to alert the communities to the coming construction so that hopefully nobody is caught unaware. There is a list of those locations on this slide. So as you're traveling through the area, be on the lookout for our billboards. This billboard theme will be used in other communication, advertisements, and our messaging for a consistent look and to send a clear message to be prepared for construction. Future outreach. As we move closer to construction, we'll continue to do outreach in a variety of ways. Communication for stage 2 and 3 areas will be carried out similar to what we've already done for stage 1. We're using targeted digital advertising. We found out that Facebook is a very cost-effective way to reach people traveling through the area. And our community partners will help us get the word out to nearby diverse communities that will be most affected. We're also coordinating with major events to ensure that event goers know the best ways to reach event locations and venues to avoid congestion and delays. And there will be traffic restrictions on weekends. We're going to continue to communicate with the targeted groups we've identified, such as the neighborhood councils, Dayton's Bluff, and Rondo neighborhoods. We're also going to maintain a construction hotline, and we'll share that number in the chat section. And we're going to be sending out regular email updates as traffic restrictions and closures happen. Those regular email updates that you can sign up for will include traffic and detour information throughout the project. That brings me to please connect with us. Our website is the top line, the I-94 hyphen I-35E St. Paul. We'll also post that in the chat area. We'd also like to encourage you to sign up for project email updates. As I said, we'll be providing regular updates on traffic impacts, delays, and detours. We also have a project hotline we'd like you to call with your questions and concerns. That number will be in the chat section. And follow us on Facebook. We're not going to be posting a lot on Facebook, but we will be using Facebook to get information out, so you can like us, even if you don't, and we're actually pretty likable, so go ahead and like us there. Then you can follow us on Twitter. Regular tweets will be sent out throughout construction with last-minute changes. It allows us to quickly pivot and get that information out to the public. Also, I can't stress strongly enough, it's very difficult to determine exactly how things are going on the state freeway system. So please visit 511mn.org. There's good information there on traffic closures and restrictions, and also incidents, which are the things we can't predict, and those could include crashes and emergency maintenance activities. Also, our main MnDOT website has the answers to almost all of your transportation questions, and it provides a good look at transportation issues around the state of Minnesota. So please get connected to MnDOT, and we'll do our best to provide the answers to your questions. Now I'd like to open the floor to questions. If you have a question, you can please post it in the Q&A section, and we'll direct your question to the appropriate staff. Will the sidewalk repairs and upgrades involve any tree removal? Kim?
Sure, I can take this one. I think there are 2 trees at the intersection of Kellogg and Mulberry that I had gone out there with MnDOT's vegetation specialist that'll be impacted. One that'll be impacted by construction, the other one not necessarily, but it's really unhealthy. But those are the only 2 that will be impacted by the construction. Everything else will be protected from equipment and are not planned to be removed.
Okay. Another quick question for you, Kim. Will the project include repainting ornamental bridge girders and ornamental bridge railings and ornamental lights? And are there any landscaping improvements included in the project?
So the quick answer to that is no. Those items are not included in the scope of this. Regarding the ornamental bridge girders, railings, and ornamental lights, I think probably the references to the Robert Street Bridge. I think that's the only bridge on this project that has work that also has those features. That's not part of the scope of this project. I know there is a bit more of an extensive painting project planned for fiscal year 25 or the 2025 timeframe. But that might include the girders, but not necessarily the railings or lights. And then I don't know if anyone else from MnDOT on the call knows about any planned landscape improvements. They aren't part of the scope of this, but there may be other projects out there that I'm not aware of.
Anybody else have any comments? Okay, here's one that I'll answer. Are you using KBEM radio during rush hour and NPR morning show for updates and NPR? We're going to be using all of the media in the Twin Cities metro area. We will be issuing regular press releases, news releases throughout the project, and KBEM, being a partner of ours, will definitely be broadcasting this information, especially as it relates to traffic in the mornings and afternoons through the construction area. And somebody also asked if we can get a copy of the webinar. We will be making a copy of the recording available sometime in the very near future, and we'll send out that information in a email alert once we have that available. Okay, well.
Kent, it looks like there's one question about the URL signing up for project updates. Sorry, I think it just got added.
That. Oh, okay. Oh yeah, I just see it now. We will put the, okay, if you go to our, well, here we go. It's at the top here. And if you go ahead and go to our website, MnDOT.gov, you can look on the front page of that on our web page, and there is a link to all of the projects there, and it's listed in numerical order under current projects and studies. And you can always find all of the projects that we're working on in the Twin Cities and throughout the state of Minnesota there on that page too. And again, I would encourage people to sign up for those email alerts and to check out the website. We'll be keeping that up to date as we move through the project. Any other questions? Okay, hearing no other questions. I got to say that I don't always remember what I want to ask until after a presentation or a meeting is done. So please visit our website and you can submit questions, and we will certainly answer them as quickly as possible for you. I'd like to now move on to some information about how MnDOT is advancing equity and addressing civil rights issues. Here is Isela with our Office of Civil Rights.
Hi everyone, my name is Isela Citlali Gomez and I am the Contract Compliance Specialist in MnDOT's Office of Civil Rights for the metro area. Basically what that means is that I monitor workforce participation for both MnDOT and local construction projects in the Twin Cities. So a brief overview of what I'm going to talk about today is building an equitable workforce through workforce goals and how we grow careers through on-the-job training, goals and services and training, and supporting businesses with contracting goals and related services. Next slide. So the workforce goals, a brief overview. The Minnesota Department of Human Rights sets workforce goals for contractors working on MnDOT projects and again on projects administered through a local public agency such as Hennepin County or a city. As a reminder, the goals are based off of contractor workforce, not MnDOT employees. And the goals are based off of the region the project is located. So if you're in the northeastern part of the state, for example, the goal for women participation is 9%, and the goal for people of color participation would be 12%. Whereas if you're in the metro, in Anoka County, for example, the goal would be 15% for women and 22% for people of color, just considering area demographics. The workforce goals reflect a percentage of the total labor hours to be performed by people of color and women on highway projects. These are aspirational goals. They are not quotas. The goals are set again on a county by county basis, and they apply to all contracts over $100,000. Next slide. The goals on this particular project, since it is in Ramsey County, is 32% for people of color and 20% for women. Next slide. One important piece that we really want to emphasize is that the special provisions, so the contract basically requires the contractor to work with tribal employment representatives throughout the life of the project, even before the road work actually begins. So this particular project is close to Shakopee, Mdewakanton Sioux community and Prairie Island Indian community. And here's the contact information for representatives from those tribes. And basically what the contractor has to do is reach out and say, hey, we have these openings. Do you have anyone that is that works in this particular field or trade that is, interested in filling this vacancy? Next slide. Disadvantaged business enterprise, so otherwise known as DBE. Maybe you have heard it put that way in the past. So the DBE goal is set project by project, so it's different than our workforce goals in that way. And it's based on scopes of work, location, and availability of certified DBE firms. DBEs are small businesses owned by people of color or women on a contract. The participation goal is a percentage of the contract that is targeted specifically for certified DBE firms to perform on the project. My colleague Mary Schmidt will talk more about this in a little bit, but the goal on this particular project is 15.8%. Next slide. Trainings for small businesses. So in addition to the contracting goals, we provide a variety of supportive services for small businesses, either certified or not certified yet. So if you yourself are an owner of a small business and looking for some ways to build capacity, please reach out to our office. Some of the ones that we have on our upcoming schedule are prevailing wage and labor compliance, professional etiquette, ASH2WARE requirements from MnDOT. ASH2WARE is the database or the system through which we collect payroll and a number of other things, and it can be really overwhelming to familiarize yourself with that software tool if you haven't used it before. So different trainings and development opportunities for small businesses. There's a link there that takes you to our upcoming events page for civil rights that shows some of these trainings. Next slide. The on-the-job training, or OJT program, is intended to increase access and opportunity to skilled trade jobs and journey level positions. Eligibility to qualify as an OJT trainee, you must either identify as a person of color, a woman, or an otherwise disadvantaged individual. That last category is determined on a case-by-case basis by our OJT coordinator, Chris Clark. And there's a variety of reasons why someone could be potentially qualified in that particular category. The OJT goal on this particular project is 5 trainees and 3,000 hours. There is a financial incentive for contractors to participate in this program. They actually get reimbursed for labor hours performed by OJT trainees up to the hours goal amount. So those reimbursement amounts range from $1, $5, and $10 depending on a number of factors. Next slide. And one of the ways that contractors get reimbursed is if the OJT trainee is a graduate of a MnDOT sponsored certified supportive services training. Sorry about that. If the trainee is a graduate of one of these programs, the contractor gets $5 back per hour that the trainee works. Some of the upcoming trainings that we have available is a 5-week laborer training, a 10-week cement mason training, a 5-week carpentry training, and a 6-week welding training in partnership with Boys Fort Band of Ojibwe. And again, these trainings are specific to get folks into the trades and diversify the workforce. Next slide. I will hand it over to Mary Schmidt. Thank you.
Thank you, Asela. I'm Mary Schmidt from MnDOT's Office of Advancing Equity, and we seek to turn MnDOT's commitment to equity into action by making our contracting and our purchasing more inclusive of diverse businesses. So till now, you've heard about what to expect on this specific project, but the message I want to deliver is that MnDOT has lots of other contracting opportunities available for small businesses. Because MnDOT, we do roughly a $2 to $3 billion annual construction investment program, which includes about $200 million in consultant contracts each year and 10 to 20 million in maintenance contracts. Well, since 2016, MnDOT's made a concerted effort to do more prime contracts with underutilized businesses with whom we know we have a contracting disparity, namely small businesses owned by women, indigenous, persons of color, veterans, and persons with a disability. I use the term underutilized because we know these businesses are available in our marketplace, but MnDOT is not utilizing them commensurate with their availability. Since 2016, we've awarded over $171 million in prime contracts to underutilized small businesses. This is across all types of contracting and purchasing. What do I mean by a small business? Well, Minnesota has more than 16,000 construction companies in our state across residential, commercial, and highways. The vast majority of construction companies are quite small. More than 14,000, or about 86%, have less than 10 employees. So as we go about our work, we try to consider how can we be a gateway for businesses of this size to perform our contracts as prime. Well, one of the ways we've been successful in diversifying our contractor pool is by using negotiated contract, which is a contracting method, but it allows us to award a small construction or a maintenance contract without advertisement, as long as we get a minimum of 2 quotes and we do not exceed $250,000 per contract. So we will be awarding 7 negotiated contracts to do ADA sidewalks and ped ramps. Those will be separate contracts from the larger 35E I-94 project. Next slide, please. So we've awarded hundreds of these negotiated contracts since 2015, averaging $60,000, $70,000. Typically, they're 1 to 2 week duration, and you can see in many different work types. In FY20, for instance, we issued 119 negotiated maintenance and small construction contracts, and that totaled more than $8.4 million, of which more than half went to underutilized businesses, even though we cannot restrict competition to just underutilized businesses. And 67% of these small contracts were in the metro area. So here's a list of the many different work types. So if you or someone you know performs any of these work types, they should be contracting and connecting with MnDOT. Small businesses tell us they appreciate this method because it's quicker and simpler than a traditional MnDOT advertised low bid contract. They also appreciate how quickly they get paid. And by keeping the contract values low, we increase the likelihood that small businesses are competing against other small businesses. And we can eliminate many of the financial barriers that we know small businesses face on large advertised projects. And the next slide, please. So maybe you're a consultant firm, or you know someone who has a consultant firm. Well, we also have lots of opportunities for you. Last year, we awarded more than $16 million in consultant contracts, prime contracts, to small consultant firms owned by women, by persons of color and veterans, and other small businesses. And most of these contracts were less than $100,000. So if you have a business that focuses on any of these services, you should consider doing work with MnDOT directly as a prime or as a sub to larger consultant firms. So you can see there's many different types of service for which we hire in a given year. And the next slide, please. So MnDOT participates in several small business certification programs. That's because we want to increase our contracting opportunities for women and people of color, veterans, and small businesses in rural parts of the state. So if you have a business and you want to perform government contract, you should consider applying for one or more of these certifications. So the DBE program, it's a federal certification. Again, it's to level the playing field for women and minority-owned small businesses to give them a fair opportunity to perform federally assisted projects and to remedy the ongoing discrimination and continuing effects of past discrimination in our industry. The TGB, or the targeted group, this is a state certification, again, to create broader opportunities for women, persons with a substantial physical disability, or specific minorities so that they can contract with the state and, again, remedy the effects of past discrimination. We've also got a certification for veteran-owned businesses. And then we have what's called the economically disadvantaged. This is for businesses that are located or where the owner resides in one of 40 counties across the state that are certified as labor or designated as labor surplus or low income. Now, presently, there are no metro area counties designated as ED counties, but I wanted you to be aware that we do also have this certification. So why would you maybe want to obtain certification as a TGB, a vet, an ED, or DB? Well, one thing to consider is that TGBs, vets, and EDs may be eligible for up to a 6% preference on state contracts. And another thing is, if you get certified, then your company name and description will appear in the applicable directory, which can really help you get your name out there, because project managers, larger companies, contractors, etc., local partners, they use these directories as well. And the next slide, please. So to find out if you're eligible for DBE, TGB, vet, or ED certification, or to get assistance with completing your application, you can reach out to the Minnesota Procurement Technical Assistance Center, or PTAC. You can just Google PTAC Minnesota. You'll find their website. PTAC is here to assist businesses of all sizes anywhere in our state. Any business that's interested in government contracting can get help from PTAC. They can help businesses of all sizes, and they offer assistance connecting them with local government contracting opportunities, state governments, state agencies as well as federal government contracts. So, well, I hope I've convinced you that MnDOT works directly with businesses of all sizes. So we recognize that our 2 to 3 billion annual budget can have a substantial economic development impact in our communities. And we want to ensure businesses of all sizes from all demographic groups get the opportunity to perform our work so that our businesses, our households, and all our communities can thrive. So thank you, and I will be available for any questions.
Thank you, Mary Ann Isela. And if anybody has any questions at all about advancing equity or any civil rights issues, go ahead and type those in the Q&A section. Or if you've thought of other questions dealing with the actual project itself or any communication issues, we'll welcome those questions from you too. Okay, I'll entertain questions at this time, and we have one right here. Mary, can we find these goals on your website?
I believe that's in reference to the workforce goals. So I will add the link to MDHR's. They have a chart that shows the workforce goals county by county, and I'll put that in the chat.
Okay, this question, Kim, how are you resurfacing the pavement?
Yeah, so the project is primarily a concrete pavement rehab. So it's repairing the joints, and there's more and less extensive repairs depending on the condition of the particular pavement. And then the main line and ramps will get a diamond grind surface, which helps with both the smoothness and noise mitigation.
Yeah, maybe you could just elaborate a little bit on noise mitigation during this project.
For the pavement surfacing?
Yeah.
The diamond grinding it's a surface finish that primarily is to two purposes. One, to try to eliminate noise from tires on the pavement, but also kind of increases the smoothness and takes out bumps. I think it's pretty typical on a lot of our highways.
Here's another question. Are frontage roads going to be closed?
As part of this project, we will have some mill and overlay work that's done on just part of St. Anthony and Concordia on the west end of the project. Those won't be, I don't believe, full closures. Otherwise, there may just be some lane restrictions that are associated with the curb ramp work, but otherwise, there won't be frontage road closures unless they're directly connected to a ramp closure.
Thank you. And here's one for Melissa Barnes, our North Area Manager. I realize this is not part of the project you are discussing, but are you able to share where the land bridge over the Rondo neighborhood idea stands?
Sure, thanks. I will put a website into the chat with more information about that. Reconnect Rondo is leading that effort. So I'll put that in the chat and respond to that answer.
Somebody's asking, where will I go to find out what ramps are closed, for example, in the upcoming week? That will be on our website. We'll be posting those. We generally have at least a 7-day notice where we get signing up also, and then we'll be sending that out in emails and tweets. So hopefully that helps. So, and I can't stress it enough, please go and sign up for those email updates. Okay, any special coordination with state government agencies as they consider return to work in St. Paul? Melissa, could you handle that one too, please?
Thank you. Yeah, no, we are going to be reaching out specifically to the legislature and other Capitol Complex employees, as well as the business associations, to try and communicate these changes and this construction and the impacts to the construction as well. So mostly just communication, and as well as we know that the timing of this is a little bit hard with things kind of opening back up, or possibly still to be determined, right, as everything's moving forward. But we are trying to communicate this early, and urging folks to work with their employers and their supervisors as they are going to and from their places of employment.
I might also add that we did communicate with all the state agency government communicators in the Capitol Complex area and in the downtown St. Paul area, as well as we did send out this information to all of the legislators, both House of Representatives and the Senate. So that information is out there. And I do believe we do have some legislators that are on this discussion this afternoon. Any other questions out there? Well, I don't know if you're like me, but I always think of my questions long after the meeting's done. So please visit our website. You can submit your questions there and we'll get an answer to you as quickly as possible.